Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge. And first off, I'd like to apologize for the wow that is my eyes today. Things got a little bit away from me, lines have been blurred, and then for some reason my eyeliner got extremely loud and we're rolling with it today. So anyway, staring at myself today, I'm like, what is with the raccoon eyes that you have done to yourself, Jennifer? But you know, we handle it. It's fine. So today I am bringing you a member voted on video. The way that this works is, hi, I have channel memberships in case you didn't know. And one of the tiers is called Romantic Renegade, and Romantic Renegade and above gets to vote on a video topic that they want to be made, and it happens. So this month, and it isn't always like there's more than one a month because sometimes I'll do it twice a month, whatever. I will put up special polls that are just for my channel members who get to choose a video that they want to sponsor. So this video, as you can tell, it's called Books That I Will Never Read. I've seen this done as like, there's the anti-TBR tag. I believe I did that video once. If I did do it, it will be pinned up here. I can't remember when. I think it was quite a while ago, and my tastes are so much different now anyway. So I put this as one of the options. They voted on it, and so we're gonna go. I think a lot of this is actually kind of like series wise and stuff like that, as well as it more has to do with some authors now too, but I'll let you know as we get there. We're just gonna dive in. I don't have a ton on this list because I don't usually like to make statements of I will not read. There's even some on this list that I'm going to say my thoughts could change if. But we'll just go ahead and it'll be fun. I might get a little bit ranty, which I know y'all love, and we'll go from there. Okay? So starting off at the top of the list, one book that I will not read is Blockshot by Kennedy Ryan. I have actually read both Longshot and Hookshot in this series, and the reason why I won't read this book is because of the tropes involved. In case you didn't know, this has cheating in it, and I'm going to go into a little bit of more detail, so I'm going to put up the spoiler tag by this book because one of my dear friends who loves Kennedy Ryan, Crystal, hey girl, she is making her way through this series, and she loves Kennedy Ryan, and I love Kennedy Ryan. Okay, I haven't read as many of her books as some other people. I'm working my way through the Grip trilogy right now, and I'm having a great time. But something that I've noticed in quite a few of her books is that she does have her characters be in relationships with other people who are not the main couple. And sometimes that is for reasons beyond their control, like in Longshot. And sometimes it is because people are too chicken or lazy or hurtful to break up with the other person before they go forward. So I'm going to put this spoiler tag up, like I said, and I'll tell you the situation that Crystal explained to me, where I was like, yep, I didn't want to read this. Because first I heard from my friend Bree, I was like, hey, I've heard there's cheating, tell me the scenario. And she did. And then Crystal, who, like, I think for a lot of us, we say we don't like cheating because, I mean, in real life, we don't like cheating, right? But in books, it can add an extra level of angst, and these are fictional people. So it's, you know, there are some books that I love that have little elements of cheating as well. And like, you're not supposed to like that they're cheating, but you can still like support the character. But from what Crystal told me, this person that our heroine is still dating, there's nothing wrong with this person. Like, they are not an abuser. They are not, you know, there's no reason why our heroine cannot break up with this person. You know, her connection with the hero in this story is something that goes back to their college days, and then they are so in lust with each other that they can't help themselves. And I just don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you can't say, hey, things are heating up between us. I think I'd rather be with you than the person I'm currently with. So let's pause this. Let me detach myself from this other person before we go forward. And I know that is what you should do in real life. And I'm not saying you can't be over, like, but I just think it is a shitty thing to do, especially because Kennedy Ryan, just the book before in this series, we had a heroine who was forced to be in a relationship with someone because that person was abusive to her and holding a child over their head. And then we have a case in this one where, to me, it's an unforgivable thing to cheat on someone who has done nothing to deserve it. And I just can't stand it. It's my biggest detractor. For all that I read books about sex trafficking and, you know, assaults and stuff like that, I am not okay with cheating when we're just reading a contemporary book. You know, when there's no other factors involved other than you didn't break up because it would be awkward, it would be hard, but yet you're gonna cheat on that person and just make them feel shitty. Like, I just can't get behind it, and it doesn't work for me. So though I love, and also the characters that is in that book, I'm just not that interested in them the way that I was in August and Iris's book and Lotus, and I forgot his name, but in Hookshot. So I didn't care to read the story with the cheating in it when I didn't really care about those characters. So there we go. There's my, I probably won't ever read Blockshot. I am going to keep reading books by Kennedy Ryan though, even though it does appear to me that that trope of people kind of sort of being in relationships and not completely ending things is a trend for her. The depth and breadth and width of the stories she's telling are worth it to me for the most part. But like Blockshot, also I believe I think there's some like body hate in that one too. And I just can't I can handle that sometimes, but with all the other things stacked up, I just didn't want to. Wow, I talked about that one a lot more than I wanted to. So there we go. Then there is this one, and this is called That Scandalous Evening by Christina Dodd. This is another one that I probably won't read because Crystal told me about it. She gave this like 1 or 2 stars. I picked it up. I think I just found this randomly. I liked that it was black. I know that's weird, but I have a rainbow shelf out there, and I don't have many romances that have like black on the spine. I know that's a random reason. It was a 50-cent book, so I can purchase some books for aesthetic reasons. But she read this. I can't remember how it came about that she did read it, but this one has to do with this woman who, she sculpts this guy, and she gives him a very like small penis because she didn't really see his penis. She just sculpted him, and he feels that he needs to prove to her that he has a bigger dick than he does. I know I'm breaking this down into small pieces, but Crystal had a very beautiful in-depth vlog about it, and the way that she spoke about the way things happen between these 2 characters and some of the dubious consent that happens. I know, I don't mind dubious consent, but I like dubious consent when it's in a dark romance. When we're just reading a fun historical and we're throwing in things like that, that's where it makes me uncomfortable, because there's no like added reason for there to be dubious consent or for people to just be going along with sex because they don't want to tell the person no. I'm like, I just don't want to read it. It's not that it can't be a thing, and it's fine if you like it. I mean, no shaming to anyone here. But from the things I heard about this hero, it kind of made me want to punch him off a bridge. And since I read romance for the heroes, I just don't have an interest. And since I have literally hundreds of other historical romances to choose from, I'm going to go with the gut of my friend, my Booktube bestie, and say probably not That Scandalous Evening for me. Then this is actually a series, and this is the first one that, okay, so I'm talking about a series here that I'm not planning to finish, and I may change my mind about this one, but I'll tell you. So I've read books 1 through 7 of The Wheel of Time, and I did that last year because I used to be more a part of Fantasy Booktube. Like I was more with that. 2019 was really like my transition year where I went from, because I started Wheel of Time in 2019 and I was reading it up through like April of 2020. And then I was reading it with my friend Murphy from the channel Murphy Napier, and she ended up continuing on, and I was like, I don't have the energy to continue reading this series. It is arguably, you know, it's really up there with some of the best fantasy series written ever. I definitely could see why. But this is a case of, again, I've read through book 7, and I'm willing to kind of be on the TV show route for this series, you know? Maybe that'll be as damaging as it was for people who loved Game of Thrones, but I'm actually hoping that the TV show will sex things up a little bit, right? I really enjoyed some characters in this series, and they are the characters that kept me reading far past the point of being bored out of my mind. But even most avid Wheel of Time fans will tell you that there's a slog to get through, and there are parts of this series that lose people. So again, this is the series that I'm not saying never say never, but currently the types of books that I like and the things that I want to read in fiction, I can't see myself pushing onward with the Wheel of Time because I didn't like it. So I may go back to the audiobook someday. I may, if the show ever makes it to season 7 and further, I may pick back up, but I don't see myself doing that this side of the decade. So that's why I put this on this list. Then, this is just a random one, but I don't plan to read Fairest by Marissa Meyer. I love the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I love the Renegade series by Marissa Meyer. I think she's very talented. A couple reasons why I won't read Fairest. I'm not a big fan of reading a spin-off like novella or prequel about a villain when we know they're going to be evil. Because often it's only to humanize that person. I feel like Marissa did that well enough in the canonical series. Because I knew where Levana was coming from, she still just ended up evil. And by the end of her, there was nothing redeemable. So I don't really enjoy like reading her prequel and seeing how tough things were for her when she ends up being like an infant killer or attempted infant killer later on. You know what I mean? I just don't have any, I don't have any reason to be on her side. And I know some people love Fairest. I know that they do, but I'm fine with the regular part of the series that was there. It's one of my favorite YA fantasy series ever. I've met Marissa Meyer twice at book signings. So I'm just kind of going to let that one go. I'm telling you, it was hard to find books for this list because, again, I don't generally make this statement never will. Because situations arise where I will. The next, I'm talking about 2 trilogies by Tessa Dare. So I own every book Tessa Dare has written, except for a couple of her anthologies with people. And I have been told by people who have read them and are much wiser than me that the Wanton Dairymaids and the Numbers trilogy by her are not great. And that you can definitely tell that when she switched publishers, her writing really got a lot better. So though I own them for posterity's sake and to have a complete Tessa Dare collection, I will probably never read these 2 trilogies because the writing, from what I'm told, and the stories that she built are just not as great as starting with Spindle Cove and going forward is. So even though this is an author that I love, I probably won't read these early 2 trilogies. I may still read her first book ever because I've heard that one's not horrible. But for people who have read all of her books, they really say that it really got cooking with Spindle Cove. So again, it was hard to put stuff on this list, and I'm not saying never, never, but I know this is called Books I Will Never Read, but that's mostly a clicky title, right? As booktubers, we try to make things happen, but the high likelihood is I will not. But who knows? Something may happen where I do. We never know. Then random, and sorry Melissa, who I know just read this book, but I will probably never read The Count of Monte Cristo. So a couple things I want to say. There are a lot of classics I probably won't read. I don't have a problem with classics. I think they're fantastic. I think how some books are chosen as classics doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I wonder what books from our time will be considered classics. A lot of times they're not books that I would enjoy because I'm a romance lover and I like problematic elements, and those things don't always make it into classics, right? But specifically the reason why I won't read The Count of Monte Cristo, and no, it doesn't have to do with how large it is. I've actually tried to read it before. The problem being is that, trivia about Jenn, my favorite film ever is The Count of Monte Cristo that came out in 2001 with Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce. It has been my favorite film for 15 years, and it will continue to be so. Nothing has beaten it for the story that it tells. From what I've heard of friends who have read The Count of Monte Cristo, the books don't quite match up. And it's not that the movie didn't do a good job of overall getting it there, but I've heard that things are a little more vicious and a little less hopeful, maybe, than the film has it go. And again, I don't know this, I haven't read it myself, but because I'm a person that usually defers to the book being better, because that's the original content, right? I don't want to read this book and have my favorite film of all time now have criticism in my mind. I want to keep that film like pure and untainted for me because I have such good memories. I just rewatched this film. My dad was visiting me about a month ago and he picked us to watch that one. I was like, oh, that's my favorite film, Dad. That was nice. And we both cried while we were watching it. And I know there's good stuff in that book, but for the size that it is and for it being different than my favorite film, I don't want to read it and then think of my favorite film as being lesser because it doesn't match. And I know that I would. Because even, like, think of Outlander. My favorite TV show probably ever. But it is still less than the books to me because I've read the books, you know? And those books are great. So that's just a quirk for me and why I picked this as the specific classic that I will never read. Even though there's probably a lot of classics that I won't ever read. Specifically, I will never read The Count of Monte Cristo because that film, until such a time in my life as that is not my favorite film ever made, I won't read that book. So, if they make a film that somehow usurps this for me, then maybe, but The Count of Monte Cristo is my favorite. And then the last one I want to talk about, just because I want to, you know, throw a little tea. I'll throw a little tea out there. I don't plan to read Raw by Seven Rue. I also don't plan to read anything else by Seven Rue. Not only because I've just discovered that the level of kink and stuff that she goes to, though I don't think the kink happening is wrong, it's not a kink that makes me feel good. There's usually a lot of degradation and stuff being in there. And I don't mind degradation in my books. I have read a few that I quite like. But I need it in small doses and I need it done correctly. And I don't feel that Seven Rue like does it that great. And also her being a shitty human and being mean to people that I care about and trying to get them canceled and trying to steal their brand. Maybe you know who I'm talking about. And then I've heard some things about Raw that make me pretty uncomfortable, having to do with sexualizing children. Nothing sexual happening to the child. Also, there is incest in this book, which I guess like isn't even hinted at in the words. So this book has been banned from Amazon and it's actually up on Eden Books. And okay, yes, I've read books with incest in them before, but I knew that there was incest in them going in. Does that make sense? I don't think anyone should ever have surprise incest in a book because that is a huge taboo topic. And though I am a taboo queen myself and I'm in a group of wonderful taboo, like women who will read taboo and people who will, you never surprise someone with taboo. Like, to me, that's almost like a consent level thing. Like, you don't just go, surprise, incest. No. And that was not on the book. And so good for Amazon for banning it. Because if you ban some of the other ones with incest, this one should be banned too. There are some with incest that get left up because I've read them. But it isn't a surprise that they're incest. And I think that's a good way to piss people off, right? Like, I thought about it. Like, why does Daniel James, I think it's Daniel James, or QB Tyler have books that skirt on incest on Amazon and others don't? And I think part of it is, number one, the kind of incest that it is. And number two, it's not a surprise. Like, it's explained in it. So the people who buy it, they know there's going to be incest in their book. Whereas if you just leave a book up and you don't tell anyone, and then they purchase this book, and then there's incest, and they're like, what the fuck? There's incest in this book. They are going to look, you know, they're going to be the ones who complain. Because that's one of the things with Amazon is it is mostly like complaint-based removals. Okay? So anyway, I don't plan to read anything else by Seven Rue as it is. I own some books by her that were given as gifts to me, and I will probably like be offloading them if possible, because I don't want to support someone who's a shitty human. And also, like, you're trying your tricks and it isn't working. And though I do support Eden Books, I believe people should be able to buy the books that they want to buy. I just think you should stop trying to trick people with them, because that's a good way to piss people off, is to hide the incest. Does that make sense? Like, any book that I read with incest in it, I want to know that it's in there before I go in, okay? That'd be great. Thanks. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope that was sufficiently ranty for you. Again, it was hard to make this list because, yes, there are many books that I wouldn't read, but most of them it's because they're not romance, you know? Like, I tried to keep this focused on some that are like romance, and then a couple others that I know for sure I wouldn't read. So I hope this is helpful to you. Thank you to my channel members who voted on this topic. If you would like to check out my channel memberships, there's always a link in my description. If you're on a desktop, there should be a little like join, and you can see what the options are. I do live chats. We just had one yesterday. You're able to vote on topics and suggest topics to me, so definitely check that out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more of those videos right now. Bye!